cost of living that will not achieve the purpose that they say, and the third party doesn't even have a platform. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker.
Right Honourable Winston Peters.
There is no better demonstration of how desperate and hopeless the National Party is than the last Speaker's address. First of all, David Bennett, of course, from Hamilton East, purchased farm after farm on tax avoidance. That's why he doesn't like any talk.
Point of order.
Oh, excuse me.
A point of order. David Bennett.
Point of order. I request him to withdraw and apologise for those comments. I take offence to that.
On tax avoidance.
Yes.
Yeah, he's accused him of something that's not true.
Look.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of point of order, now, look, first of all...
I'm considering. Are you speaking to the point of order?
I want to explain why they...
Order.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, well, I'll determine that.
It's against standing orders for him to do a point of order.
Order.
Yes, thank you.
Now, if the member is speaking to the point of order...
Well, the Speaker says I can.
Winston Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The reality is that tax evasion is illegal. No, tax evasion is illegal.
Please sit.
Taking steps to avoid taxation is not.
Order.
So they're taking offence.
Now, I'm asking you to sit.
Yes.
Now, a point of order has been raised, and the manner in which the member used the term is inferring that the member is not an honourable member. No, I am ruling. No. And so the member will... Order, I'm on my feet. Do not respond to me when I'm on my feet. And the member will desist from using terms which infer the member is not an honourable member. Right, Honourable
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
Point of order. Mr. Speaker, I am remembered for taking on the wine box conspirators, and the issue there was not avoidance, it was evasion. I know the difference, and far more clearly than you do, and I'm not going to be ramrolled in this House on the basis of your lack of understanding.
Order. If the member casts aspersion on the Speaker like that, his speech will be terminated. Now, I've made a ruling. The member is not to infer issues which count against the honourability of any member in this House. He may continue. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Point of order.
Point of order, David Bennett.
I have taken offence. The member doesn't matter whether it's evasion or avoidance. He needs to withdraw and apologise. That is the nature of the House.
The member has taken offence, and the member will withdraw and apologise.
Point of order.
No, the member will withdraw.
I withdraw and apologise. Point of order.
Point of order.
Are you now writing the tax laws for this country and saying that tax avoidance is illegal? That's what I'm telling you, and that's what the wine box is all about. And having spent 7 years on it, I'm entitled to make that assertion.
Now, we've got to a situation where the apology has been accepted. The member may continue. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Now, one of the reasons why Mr Bennett likes the Waikato Expressway is, of course, it goes past one of his farms. Mr Speaker, the budget policy statement is a whitewash. It's a snow job. It fails utterly as a realistic description of New Zealand's true economic and fiscal position. It has to be asked whether the budget statement is designed to inform the public in an objective and disinterested way on economic policy, or to be just outright government propaganda, because the budget policy statement is very sanguine, indeed complacent about the economic and fiscal outlook for our country. This is all part and parcel of National's orchestrated campaign to create a false sense of confidence and well-being about the economy prior to this year's election. Well, New Zealand First is sorry to spoil the make-believe, but we prefer facts, and they tell another story. First of all, after 5 years of a national government, New Zealand's economic fundamentals are still woeful. The structural weaknesses remain. Despite having the advantage of the best terms of trade in 40 years, as mentioned by members of the opposition, ordinary New Zealanders are struggling to find decent jobs. There are almost 150,000 unemployed, and then there's tens and tens of thousands who simply have not got enough work. Our current account deficit is one of the worst in the OECD, with New Zealand's international debt, net debt, a staggering $150 billion. And I want every National Party person over there to say to me, how can they get up and say things are right when the debt is a staggering net debt $150 billion? And the current account deficit in the budget policy statement is predicted to get worse in the budget policy statement itself. That statement has the current account deficit getting worse. It's going to grow to, listen to this, 6.3% of GDP by 2016. So to 6.3% of GDP by 2016. All of that is debt building up in this country. And nearly half of all Kiwi workers got no pay increase last year. Ordinary New Zealanders are being hit by rising costs and stagnant incomes. The result is, you know, that of the average wage, 70% of the workers don't even get that. In the average wage, 70% of the workforce don't even get that. And they're being told, just trust National, we know what we're doing. The result is that home ownership is no longer a prospect for thousands of young Kiwis. And in the budget policy statement, real wage growth is forecast to average, listen to this, 1% a year. What's the inflationary growth? Well, it's closer to 3 than 2. So the wage growth forecast, 1% a year. The forecast inflation, closer to 3 than 2. That's why the Governor of the Reserve Bank is going to slam on interest rate hikes tomorrow morning. That's what he's going to do. We have a government that's lax on immigration policy, and that is having a huge effect on the inflation of prices in Auckland, and they won't do a thing about it. Having someone from offshore buying 77 homes in Auckland, and they don't want to know. Now, that person's an offshore landlord now. The New Zealand economy is now paying home people in this country, they're paying this money into a foreign economy. Now, what's significant in the statement is what it does not say. There's very little attention to taking action on the tax challenges arising from the rapidly growing digital economy and the threat posed to the tax base. The government is happy to get all draconian against Kiwi offenders and overdue student loan repayments, but seems content to let the hikes and the likes of Google and Facebook take millions in profit from New Zealand and pay almost no tax at all. On foreign ownership and its consequences, there's a deafening silence. They don't want to know. They won't go around, of course, Waikato and Southland and West Coast and tell the people that are selling the country out left, right and centre because they don't want to know. Only a national government could be so willfully blind to the fact that the housing bubble in Auckland is being fed by foreign speculators. Just recently, Waste Management has been sold to a wholly owned subsidiary of the Beijing Capital Group for $950 million, subject, of course, to the usual rubber stamp approval from the Overseas Investment Office. So now Chinese interests will own almost all of New Zealand's waste collection and landfill businesses, and for the benefit of the member from North Shore, no, that's like quizzling. That's like treachery in an economic sense. That's what it's like, and that's what the people are going to think when they fund up to the election in 2014. And I might say, what a bumbling, stumbling start the National Party's had to this campaign. First of all, he makes the announcement, it's going to be on the 20th of December. The next breath, he demands that New Zealand First say what it's going to do. I thought it was about what they were going to do. He demands, oh, I know you'd love to know that. But you want to know this? What you should be listening to, madam, what the members should be listening to from Christchurch, apart from ignoring all the people there about the terrible slow rebuild, what that member should be listening to is what New Zealand First is saying about policy. What we're saying about policy. And I know those members are mere cannon fodder. Those members can shout hysterically, but they're not going to be here long. For goodness sake, by the time I finish my career, I'll have been here 10 times longer than both of them. That's how short their career is going to be. Listen and learn. You might learn something. Now, this will be the biggest Chinese acquisition of a local business in New Zealand since Hair Electronics took full control of Fisher & Paykel Appliances in 2012. Under what government? Why, the national government. Ownership matters. These things are not just interesting little details in the business pages. Along with all the prime agricultural land that continues to be sold to overseas interests, it means New Zealanders are increasingly working to enrich other people in other countries. But the national government just looks the other way, head stuck firmly in the sand. They will not even keep any accurate data on what is being sold, to whom, and for how much. Ignorance in their world is total bliss. There's very little acknowledgement of the budget policy statement of growing regional disparities and the need to overcome market failure. This is a bit long, so I'm trying to speed it up, and I think I'll slow down. The result is that regional economies are being neglected. wouldn't even find $4 million for the Napier-Gisborne line. Not a lousy $4 million. Mind you, heading towards $45 million for the bungle on Novapay. No doubt about that. $44 million for a bungle. The poor people, Napier-Gisborne line, can't even get $4 million. On the West Coast, the Solar Energy and Bathurst mining, no real government support whatsoever. The fact is, the government's attempts to rebalance the economy have failed miserably. Well, unlike that member, able to write my own speeches. Unlike that member, don't have to go to the research unit to be told what to do. Unlike that member, don't just parrot what the financial market paid into the National Party's coffers. No, New Zealand First is a party with members who know what they're talking about because they're experienced and they've been through it all before. So National, over 5 years, has done nothing to address the structural weakness of the economy. But here's the point. Here comes a sale of Genesis Energy. And I want to ask these members over there, does the government intend to take any structural changes to the SOEs companies that the government has on the mixed ownership program this year? Does it, for example, intend to retain the chairperson of Genesis Energy, whose only experience as a chair of a listed company was Mainzeal, who went bust? And are they aware over there of the growing resistance to having Jenny Shipley as chairperson of Genesis Energy from the market? Do they believe that having Jenny Shipley will affect the price of Genesis Energy? Because I pick up an article on the weekend from a guy called Tim Hunter, and he says, downtown, the market's not too keen on this product. He says, even more importantly, that if she's there, it'll take some real sweetness indeed to sell Genesis Energy. And how much will this cost the country that they, because of their cronyism and appointment of their own, when they're not competent to do the job, and Mainzeal is all the evidence I know of that. 100, how much do they go down owing Mainzeal? Well, they owe a staggering figure of $130 million. And there's a stack of subcontractors who've lost everything. They've been sent bankrupt by Mainzeal's collapse. And the person who headed Mainzeal, of course, Jenny Shipley. What on earth is she doing heading Genesis when we're trying to sell it? Well, yeah, I know Oravita, and also was the director on China's second biggest bank. I mean, this is astonishing stuff. And if Holyoake and Muldoon and people like that were alive in Holland, they'd be turning in their nightcaps at what these people are doing. They'd be turning in their nightcaps at what this new bunch of novices is doing. And for that member's sake over there, who's pointing to a head, and I know why.
Order. The member's time has expired.
I'm just going to finish off.
Order. The member's time has expired.
I know. I'm moving for an extension. This is so good.
It's not happening today.
Mr. Speaker.
Jackie Dean.
Oh, what a